Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Press Play Lifestyle Inspired podcast, where we do interviews with interesting and inspiring people like my new friend David here. David, would you like to say hello to the audience?
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, this is David Corey.
There we go. How you doing today, David?
I am doing great. Otherwise, other than being stuck in the house forever, but I'm a homebody and I spend my time writing. And so this is really not a change for me. So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
know. I have a lot of writer friends, so I have many unpublished books written and left in the shelves, and so I have a lot of writer friends, and everyone's like, "How you doing?" I'm like, "What? Something changed?" No, I'm like, "I'm all right." Am I supposed to not be okay? The only difference, well, I have 4 kids, so I do have
Oh, wow.
small humans like living in my space right now, but otherwise we're doing pretty good.
I've got 3 myself, 2 that are here all the time, 1 that is here every weekend and every Thursday, or every other weekend and every Thursday. So,
So a full
yeah,
house for you as well, huh?
constantly.
Well, I find it very interesting. So you said you're a writer, so that gives us a nice little lead in. But so what are you writing these days?
Well, my new book that just came out, the edited copy of my new book that just came out is a book called Illyria. And what this is a fantasy, and it is a completely new take on the vampire genre. Um, the vampire genre, let's face facts, it never really gets old. There are always going to be millions upon millions of people that want to read books about vampires and are going to want to have a new take, and that is exactly what Illyria is.
I'm super intrigued because my very first book I ever read in fantasy, actually, first one I read was not vampire, but it was Ray Bradbury, and he's
Oh
the
yeah,
god of all things
I
sci-fi.
saw him speak live in Los Angeles when I
Oh,
was going to film school in Los Angeles, and then I met him afterwards. He was an absolutely unbelievable mind, and just a really sweetheart of an old guy too. Just
yeah.
great.
My first book I read was Martian Chronicles,
Oh yeah,
and that was, and I was like, oh my gosh, this is what reading can be like. This is so amazing.
yeah,
And then my first vampire book was not in the right order, but I read Taltos by Anne Rice. It was like
yeah.
kind of in the middle of it.
Oh yeah.
And then of course I was enamored. But I'm not a big fan of though like the I should be careful because your book might be that way, but I'm not a big fan of like the glitter dusted kind of vampires.
No.
I'm a little more a little more traditional than sort of like, looks like they put a little bit of, powder on, but so
What
I'm a
what I
fan.
can what I can tell you about my vampires, my aliens, my monsters in this book is that basically, until they go into their true form, they all look like normal human beings. So it's kind of some of my heroes are people like J.R.R. Tolkien, C.S. Lewis, J.K. Rowling, people that truly know what it means to write fantasy and how to truly do it. And this, I would have to say, this the first book is brutal. It's very violent, and it has quite a few sexual innuendos. However, saying that, it is. I think it is okay for high school students starting their freshman year of high school. I think this is a great take on a genre that has had
At all.
thousands of books,
Yeah.
tens of thousands of books written. I mean,
It was
Anne
like
Rice.
even like isn't the beginning of sci-fi on television was sort of vampire-esque too, right? It was
Yeah,
Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It was like
yeah,
soft porn for soft vampire
exactly.
lovers.
That's exact. And this is the violence and the way that I create my vampires. I my story is completely original. It is about as outlandish can get, but I love to be outlandish, in which, fantasy is just such a perfect world for me because I get to, I spend 6 to 8 months working on a book, hand it over to my editor, and we work so incredibly well. I actually have 2 editors that I work with, but it works so incredibly well, and they come back and you're like, they're just like, you are so sick, you are so twisted, and your violence in this book is beautiful. It's a ballet of blood. It is a lot of fun because it is how I see my vampire world and how I see my monster world and how I see my humans interacting with my vampires, with my monsters, with my aliens. We're going to get intergalactic in this series. It is insane.
That
And the
needs to be
first
like a t-shirt, really, like, right? We're gonna get intergalactic with this series. That's sweet.
it's crazy, it's nuts, it's insane. I have ideas for 6 books at this point in time, and my goal is to try to get them out before I hit the age of 50. So I'm turning 45 in June. So I figure I've got 5 more years to write to get another 5 books out. So I should be able to do that. I write quick, probably much to the chagrin of my editors, but I write fast, and sometimes my punctuation goes out the window. So I'm fortunate that I have 2 editors that I can work with. So it's writing is so sensational, and it allows me to go into worlds that I need to be in so that I can get away from reality for a while.
Yeah, that's actually why I started reading when I was younger. Like, had kind of a bit of a rough go, and again, I was my an uncle who was not really an uncle. You know, we all have an uncle, but he took me to the library when I was like second grade,
Yeah.
and I didn't really get, like, there's books. Yeah, we lived in a trailer, so there wasn't a bookshelf at our house, um, and just the idea of jumping out of where I was just very
Yep.
attractive. It was a very attractive,
I
and
can
even
understand.
even I liked fantasy mostly because it was so different. Like, it wasn't. Um, I couldn't imagine it possibly being real, and I wanted to be that far away from what was really going on.
I totally and completely 100% understand that. The strange thing is that I have the greatest parents in the world, but one of my biggest things from a very early age to break away besides reading was with drugs and alcohol, and it would take me to another planet, and my parents could never ever understand the lure of what I was into, what I did, what I spent a good portion of my early teen years and early 20s doing. Um, it wasn't just using, but it was also being involved with a group of people that are just terrible people, and that I worked for, and have been able to come up with some of the most grandiose stories that you could possibly imagine. I mean, I'm alive, I'm well, I'm mentally I'm
Mentally here.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I have 3 kids. My kids, I would say that my kids love and adore me, and I love and adore my children. It's amazing what the human mind can overcome if we allow it to. Um,
Yeah.
and what we have to remember is that the painful things that we go through in life are those things that build us. They build character. They make us who we are, and that's the way that I've always looked at it. And I'm a small fry. I'm about 5'8", 5'9". My 14-year-old son, nearly 15-year-old son, is already taller than I am.
I
So
know my
it's
14-year-old daughter is a couple of inches taller than me, and
yeah,
I'm not small for a gal, but I think we just breed them bigger now. I don't really know.
it's strange, I mean, never, no steroids in the babies or anything. So,
Yeah, exactly. So I'm
but
curious, David. I think I think I did a little bit of research, and we talked briefly, of course, before the interview. But if I recall correctly, you went to film school, right?
yes, I did. Los Angeles Film
So,
School.
um, do you find like you enjoy both genres, like, of creating, both film and
Oh.
writing? Are you like more into one versus the other?
I do a smattering of both. I have a television series that I've been working on now for a decade. It's called The Dark of Night, and it is a live action version of Batman. It is a complete retelling. It is the only thing that remains the same is that Thomas and Martha Wayne are murdered by someone, and The rest is insanity. I am finishing up the first season right now, which is going to be about 16 episodes, and then we are going to try as hard as we can to entice Mark Hamill of Luke Skywalker fame to read the 2-hour pilot, for him to come on board and play our live action version of the Joker, because he is still my all-time favorite version of the Joker from the cartoons, and help us get this thing on Netflix. It's probably easily just the most excruciating fun I have ever had writing anything. That, along with Illyria. But the Batman stuff, no one asked me to do it. I actually started doing it right after the final Batman with Christian Bale, because I was saddened by the fact that they weren't going to be able to continue the series for another 3 films like they had. So I'm like, what would happen if this guy were even more brutal? What would happen if he were taken by the League of Shadows at 13 and a half years old and trained how to become an assassin? And that's exactly what my Bruce Wayne is. My Bruce Wayne is an assassin in our first season, which is not far-fetched from what he was in the original comic books. If you've ever read a replica of the first couple of comic books, he actually kills all the bad guys. So in this, he's an assassin before he becomes the Dark Knight. So it's a retelling, and it's been done in a way that no one has ever told this story before. It focuses on certain aspects of Bruce Wayne that we've never really been able to see before, because it's always been done in movie form or in child format or teenage format. And this series is definitely for adults. This is a brilliant retelling. It like I said, I've written thousands upon thousands of books, poetry, screenplays, teleplays, it doesn't matter. And this one is something that I just find, I know that 35 million people are going to sit down and watch every single episode of this every time it comes on. So, and it's a multi-billion-dollar property, and it will make billions of dollars for DC. And I really want I really want to see DC compete more with Marvel than it has in the past. And I believe this could be a massive flagship show for a streaming network or anything like that. Amazing. And like I said, writing for me, it's therapeutic. So it's never been really hard for me to sit down and put words to paper, especially poetry, especially dark poetry, but light-filled poetry. But writing novels, because all I do, all I did when I was a kid was just read like you did. And even if I was, if I had to go and do something for a group of people that I didn't want to, come back, sit down in my room, read a book, start reading a book,
escape from where you were.
Yeah. I needed something, because the reality of what I was doing, at the time, I romanticized it because I thought I was just Billy Badass, but I wasn't. I was being stupid, and I am beyond fortunate that I never wound up in the backseat of a cop car. I went to court and pointed out several bad people that actually shot and killed some other seriously bad people, and showed my face, but I never chose witness protection, and nothing's ever happened to me. So I've got, like I said, stories to write. I love danger. Danger is something that really, I might be 44 and a dad 4 times over, but I still like danger. Still like jumping, off of bridges, jumping out of airplanes. My wife won't let me do it, but
us women, we have a way of keeping you creative.
Well, it's one of those things where, like, I know that I would be just fine because I've done it enough times. I worked as a skydiver instructor right after my senior year of high school, so I know that nothing would ever happen to me. But again, I have children, so I have to think about that. So it's
sometimes
no motorcycle, no nothing.
They keep us sane sometimes. My husband actually, so our oldest is 14, our youngest is 6.
Oh wow. Okay.
And we're hitting the midlife pretty hard.
Oh yeah.
Today is my 43rd birthday.
Okay. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
Oh my
And
gosh, happy birthday.
yeah, I
Yeah.
know, right? I get to spend
You
it with you.
don't
It's
you don't
amazing.
look 43. So there you go.
Oh,
That's
thanks.
the good thing.
Well, I've
That's
looked this old since I was like 10, so I'm finally getting to, look like I'm younger.
well, I'm 44 and I look like this. So it's, I mean, I have my hat on because my hair is going through growth stages and I'm growing it back out. And I had it down almost to the middle of my back about a year and a half ago, and now I'm growing it back out because I miss it
Yeah,
immensely.
yeah, it's a different feel. So he has just got a motorcycle this last year. And it's actually good though, because I think he just sometimes just need time and space
Yep.
that's not with small humans or your wife or what. You're still an independent person.
I
So
mean, yeah,
for me, I'm like, hey man, but I grew up on the back of a bike, so I'm not scared of them. That was kind of just the way we were
I
raised.
grew up on them too myself. So yeah, I mean, it's the
Just
way
part
that
of
I
who you
got
are.
around my end of my junior and all of my senior year of high school. So,
So I'm kind
um,
of curious. So like a lot of the description that you talked about, and I know of a project that you're working on in the background eventually too, but of what you've talked about, a lot of them seem like you have a dark, kind of a dark vibe. You said disturbed, but I'm not sure if everything's disturbed. Is most of your content kind of from sort of that side of things, like that darker kind of vibe?
as my mother and father have said, my mom doesn't like to read much of my work because I am a very I yes, I pull a lot from inner demons. And if you can find a way to fight those inner demons, whatever way you use to fight those inner demons, it helps.
Hey,
And
who knew you could use words though, right? That's for
oh,
all of us
I've
nerds growing up. We can hit back.
well, the great thing about it is that words are more powerful than a gun. They can be. You can crush another human being with. I mean, you think about it and you think, oh my gosh, our words have so much power, and that is so true.
Yeah.
So true. I mean, why do I read Stephen King? Why do I read Hunter S. Thompson? Why do I read the people that I read? Because their words just burn holes right through you, and
Yeah.
you don't want to put their words down. And I was bullied in junior high. I was bullied in high school until I finally stood up for myself at the end of my freshman year. And at the end of my freshman year, I never ever got bullied again. Um,
Yeah.
and it was one of those things that at the start of my sophomore year, I started writing about it. And I was spending all my time in school, and then I would go home. And if I wasn't hanging with friends or doing something, then I would be in my room on my old Mac Apple computer, and I would be writing poetry. I would be writing stories, short. I've still got the start of like 4 novels that I started when I was 16, and it's so weird to go back and see that, and I'm like, oh, I can't put that in here. That's awful. Oh my God, what was I thinking? But yeah, I mean, we pull from what we know. And my parents didn't make my life dark. I made my life dark. I did everything to my own self. I put myself in every single situation that I could because I didn't want to be sheltered. I wanted to be out. I wanted to be open. I wanted to do things that,
Yeah.
that people would be like, you're crazy. You are utterly out of your ever loving mind. And I was. I had a severe addiction to cocaine for 14 years. And I had a severe drinking problem for damn near from 14 till I was 24, 25, so for 11 years. And again, when I needed to get away from those demons, I washed it down with a good book, or I washed it down with myself sitting in front of a computer, um, and just writing until I couldn't write anymore, until it stopped making sense. And
I
that's
think that's
just,
a really like under that. I don't know if people kind of heard it, but it's inspiring to hear that someone can dig out of a place that's that far away through their creativity, through writing, through your film, through expressing, like I believe you said, like you're kind of expressing those demons, and that's how you're fighting them. And that's another way it's not foofy or woofy or any of that. It's just like straight up, like, how do you handle adversity practically? And it sounds like writing has been a huge part of that for
You
you.
know, it's just one of those things that if we don't find that something, and I've got friends that never found that something, and those friends are no longer with me. And I when I look back at some of the most painful shit I've ever been through in my life, you know, I've buried probably 15, 20 friends from high school. Why? We are in our 40s. We're supposed to live to our 90s, you know, our early
Right.
hundreds, for crying out loud, you know, grow old together and have reunions, you know, and you know, what I don't understand is how they could never find their center. You know, they just couldn't find it. They couldn't find that chi, that zen. They couldn't find God, whatever you want to call it, whatever it is that gets you through, whatever it is. There has to be something,
Yeah.
and you
Well,
know,
maybe that's part of your message, though, David. Like, maybe that's part of what you can leave as a legacy to the people listening on the podcast, the people reading your books, is, as dark as you can imagine it, you can
yep,
also get out of it, right?
yep.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, one of these days, I promise I will write a lighthearted book. I don't know when,
I'm thinking after
but
you're 50, right? Because you got a
uh,
couple other ones to
yeah,
crank out first.
I've got 5 more to go. This series is 6 books, and it is going to really spin the vampire genre on its head. Not that I think that Stephanie Meyer is a bad writer, but she's got sparkly and glittery, and she writes, like, specifically, I feel like she writes for a female perspective. And even though she's got the Edward perspective coming in this new book that she just announced, which I'm really happy for her because she's actually a really good writer, I just don't like sparkly
Yeah.
vampires.
Yeah, that's like, I'm not a big fan of like the glitter pyre.
I like disembowelment. I like heads being torn off. I like stuff like that. A little bit of a love story is great, and yes, Ilaria does have a love story in it, but it is, I assure you, not the entirety of that book. It is not about anything other than literally saving the planet, saving the galaxy. It is nutty. It is beyond crazy. It is funny, and it is appropriate for readers from freshmen in high school on up. If you are a vampire
Mhm.
lover, check it out because you will, I assure you, have never read anything quite like it ever.
So how can people find the beginnings of Illyria and the next steps for you? Where are you at?
Here is what I would say. The easiest place for them to find me right now is on Amazon.com. Go to Amazon.com, type out Illyria, Elyria, put next to it David Corey, and it'll take you directly to that page.
Nice.
Now, as I say this, you can get the electronic version for free. I don't know why Amazon has done that, but what I ask to all those listeners out there is do me a favor and buy that electronic version. It's only $6.99.
Yeah.
You know, so go out there, and I promise you, if you are a vampire lover, you are going to get down on this book and really have a good time.
Amazing, amazing. Well, thank you so much for taking
Oh,
the time
thank
with us
you.
today. I've had a great time
Oh, I've had
reminiscing
a
about some of my
blast, Jackie.
faves. And next book, I want to be the first one that knows about it, okay?
Yeah, I would. Yes, absolutely. We will shoot you an email as soon as that one comes out.
All right, you have a good one. Thanks a
You
lot.
too, darling.
Bye.
Absolutely.